to you, the viewers of Abhinaya Bharati, Dharwad, Dr. Arvind Kulkarni, Dr. B.T. Nayak, and ladies and gentlemen. I thank the organizers of Abhinaya Bharati for giving me an opportunity for the second time this week to speak to you on some subject of great interest. I am going to speak on Lorca's Blood Wedding. It is one of the finest modern plays. Lorca was and is an important American Spanish novelist and playwright. He has written more than 10 plays, and his famous plays are The Bride, Blood Wedding, The House of Bernard Alba, Irma, Mariana Pineda. These are his important plays. There are several other important plays by Lorca. Lorca was an interesting man, and the world took a lot of time to understand Lorca as a man and as a playwright. He was very radical. He was very critical and radical. He was critical of his own culture, his own tradition, and he was also very radical in his thoughts, attitudes, approach, as well as way of life. And for a long time, nobody knew, including the members of his family, that Lorca was a gay, he was a homosexual. And as I said in the beginning, they took a long time to understand Lorca as a man. Yes, being a gay, being homosexual, then it was crime, and it was viewed as some kind of anti-social, anti-religious activity, and it was seen as some kind of vulgar act, etc., etc. And people have now have now understood the need to recognize gays, homosexuals, and what we call third gender. And it was very unfortunate that Lorca, being a celebrated novelist and playwright, very radical thinker and progressive, was shot dead by a right-wing firing squad. And his famous aphorism is, a dead man in Spain is more alive than a dead man anywhere in the world. I shall not elaborate this statement of his, because I have only 30 minutes to speak. And it means a lot to you and to me, to everyone who is living in the contemporary world, in today's contemporary world. And I advise the viewers, I may in fact suggest the readers that they should read the biography of Lorca to understand the mind of a man who produced the plays which exert a lot of influence on all of us. And the topic of my presentation today is feminist analysis of blood wedding. In fact, this is blood wedding. There are a number of instances to prove that it is also a feministic play, but this is not the right example. several other plays The Bride, The House of Bernard Alba, Irma, and Mariana Pinede. These plays can be read. These plays can be profitably read as feminist plays than Blood Wedding. Anyway, I'm going to consider Blood Wedding as a feminist text for today's presentation. The very title of the play, Blood Wedding, is very arresting and interesting. It combines two antithetical concepts of wedding and blood, wedding and blood, happiness and death. And I just take 2 minutes to narrate to you the plot of the play so that you can understand the discussion better. So there are four major characters in the play: the mother, the bride, the bridegroom, they don't have names, the father, and Leonardo, the bride's lover, and his wife. So these are the characters in the play. Of course, there is chorus, and there are woodcutters and several men and women who attend the marriage. So it's all about wedding. It's all about marriage. And marriage, which has to celebrate life, will celebrate death. So it's called blood wedding. And Leonardo, the lover, and the bridegroom, they fight with each other and they get killed. So the mother in the play is a widow, and she lost her husband and her older son in a feud with the Felic family. There is a family called the Felic family, and there was a fight between the two families, and she lost. The mother, whose son is going to get married, he doesn't get married, of course. So she has already lost her husband, her older son, and her son is marrying the daughter of of a man, and who are responsible, or who were responsible for the death of her husband and her older son. So when the play begins, she is preparing for the marriage of her only living son, the mother, and she learns that the fiancé was in love with a with a member of the Felix family, Leonardo, who is now married. Leonardo, who is now married, was in love with the bride, whose marriage is arranged at the beginning of the play. So the mother of the bridegroom comes to know that her would-be in-law was in love with a young man called Leonardo, who is married. So on the morning of on the morning of the wedding day, Leonardo arrives and he declares his love. He declares his love for the bride, who is ready to get married, but the bride rejects in the name of the honor. Okay, this play is better read in the context of instincts or instinctive impulses and the mind. Okay, bhavane ಮತ್ತು viveka. All right, but I'm going to read this play as a feministic text. So when Leonardo, on the day of marriage and the day of wedding, he arrives and he meets her and tells her that I'm still in love with you. She says, no, you cannot speak like that to me, because I'm not the same as I was. I'm a bride. I'm going to get married very soon. All preparations are made. So she rejects his love in the name of honor. What happens during the wedding celebration? Her desire overcomes her sense of duty. So there is a fight between desire and the sense of duty. And she secretly flees with Leonardo. She elopes with Leonardo because she comes to know that it is not possible for her to marry the bridegroom, to marry the man and live with him, because she is still in love with her former lover, you know, Leonardo. So they flee, they go away, they run away. Then this is an insult to the family, both the families, of course. Then see the bridegroom, the cousins of the bridegroom and bridegroom himself, they all go to the forest where they are supposed to be hiding, and they trace him, and Leonardo is killed, and also bridegroom is killed, and the bride comes back. She comes back, and when she comes back, there are two women waiting for her, and the mother and the wife of Leonardo. So all the three women at the end of the play are screaming and crying and cursing their own fate, and the play comes to an end. This is the plot of the play. Now, this play has to be, I'm going to read this play as a free feministic text, feministic text and text. So this play can be read at 4 levels. I'm using the concept of Ellen Showalt. She talks about 4 levels of studying a text from a feminist perspective. They are biological level, linguistic level, psychological level, and socio-cultural level. So before I begin to read this play from these 4 perspectives, let me just quote one or two. Let me draw your attention to 1 or 2 statements about women and women issues, modern women, etc., etc. Jane Tompkins has a statement about women and the women condition, etc., etc. I don't fully agree with what he says, what he writes. What enrages me is the way women are used as extension of men. This is the limitation of reading a text from one particular perspective. When you consider a text from one particular perspective, that is feminism, then you will deny other dimensions of it, because we cannot say that men are always exploiters and women are always the exploited. It may be true, 50%, 60%, 70%, not 100%. Anyway, so what enrages me in the way is the way women are used as extension of men, mirrors of men, devices for showing men off, devices for helping man get what they want. They are never there in their own right, or rarely. So the world of Western contains no woman. Sometimes I think the world contains no women. I think this is an extreme kind of statement that he is making about women. It is true that women are exploited. It's also true that women are used as devices, to do something for men, because we have patriarchy and the whole world is patriarchal in nature. I agree, but we cannot say that women are absent in the world. The world of Western contains no women. There are women in all cultures, in all civilizations, and who do their duties, and who exercise their powers, who have their freedom. And today we have what we call modern women. Last year during the lockdown, and I went to some place, I could see women standing in a big queue to purchase liquor, wine. And that was a great cultural shock for me. And in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu, you could see women standing in a big queue to purchase wines. Yes, I drink. I drink, I smoke. Anyway, I don't have time to talk about these things. But it is true that women have to be empowered, and women have to be given their rightful share, and women's strength and potentiality has to be recognized, and she should be treated as equal to men, and she should be made partners in all human affairs and activities. So, um, and also there, I will draw your attention to Bristler. It is the male who defines what it means to be female. I fully agree with you. We agree with this statement. And what is woman? What is female? Who defines? You know, why a woman should be like this or like that? It's not women who decide. It's men who decide for women. It is it's males who define for females, which is objectionable, and controls the political, economic, social, and literary structures. And Simone de Beauvoir's statement, famous statement we all know: in a particular society, male defines what it means to be human, including therefore what it means to be female. All right. So I will keep these statements at the back of my mind when I, um, consider this play, Bloodbathing, as a feminist text. As I said to you, the play can be read at 4 levels. So, biological level, I will explain the text in terms of 4 levels: biological level, linguistic level, psychological level, and socio-cultural level. It focuses on the image of female body. I'm talking about biological level. When you read a text like Bloodbathing, then you will have to find out how female body has been projected in the play. So let us focus on the image of female body, and various parts of female body become significant impact in a feminist text. And from time immemorial down to the present, we have been talking about the female body. There is no end to this discussion. Okay, and feminists say that the female body has been politicized, or has been misinterpreted, or female body has been wrongly projected, because they say, it's like female body is like male body. Okay, and you cannot glorify, or you cannot just glorify. The body needs, the body requirements. So there is a line in the play: beautiful, her face glowed like a saint's. Her face, glowed like a saint's. Maybe today women are not happy if you compare them to Sita or Mandodari. Okay, because feminists don't accept this purity, chastity, this satihood, this devotion, even motherhood. There are women who reject motherhood. Why should woman be a mother? Why should woman, grow children? There are many issues. Okay, so her body, her face glowed like a saint's. So this sainthood, they also say that you suppressed women emotions, feelings, her real identity, her needs, requirements, her dreams, etc., in the name of religion, or by comparing her or bestowing godly qualities on her, etc. So woman is presented as a goddess of beauty. We should remember that Lorca, unlike his contemporary writers, was very, very sympathetic towards women and women problems and situations. And he has produced remarkably powerful characters in several other plays than in Blood Wedding. And how this is presented in the play, biological, based on biology of female body, how discrimination is done. Leonardo says to Bride, "It's not my fault. The fault is of the earth." This is an interesting discussion. I don't have time. Otherwise, I would compare this to this to Girish Karnad's play, The Fire and the Rain. The dialogue, the conversation between Yavagrith and Vishaka, how Yavagrith traps Vishaka and uses her body, uses her sex, to take revenge upon his uncle Rabha and his cousins, etc., etc. That could be an interesting point of comparison between Blood Wedding and Girish Karnad's The Fire and the Rain. And this play can also be compared with Chandrasekhar Kamba's several plays, not just Kardu Kudre, other plays also. I find a lot of similarities between Kambar and Lorca in terms of the use of images and the use of language and the use of folklore, treatment of folklore, etc., etc. So Leonardo says, I'm still interested in you. It's not my fault. He says, it's not my fault. The fault is of the earth. And this fragrance that you exhale from your breast and your braids, the fragrance that you exhale from your breast and your hair is responsible. That is your fault. It is the fault of your body. Okay? And it is the fault of the earth. It's not my fault. Leonardo tells the bride. And the father of the bride, also talks about his daughter. It's very, when I read it, I felt very bad. How could a father, make such a statement about his own daughter? And this is the typical man's mind. Okay, this is typical patriarchal approach and attitude which has to be challenged and questioned and problematized. Father, talking about his daughter, says, "My daughter is wide-hipped." He talks about, the hips of his own daughter. And again, this treachery and fertility are the features of women. You find it in Kamba, man and woman and fertility. And woman can bear children only when she has a man, or she is with a man. Lorca uses the images of snake for woman. He calls woman snake. This is a cliche term. It has been this image has been widely used in all literatures. Okay, woman is compared to snake, or woman is called snake. If you read the play, you come across several examples where to prove how women are discriminated against and ill-treated based on their biological structures. Second is linguistic level. You find several examples in all literatures and cultures, and you find also in this play. The language is male-centric. Language is male-centric. The kind of language that we are using is male-centric. Why feminists have not succeeded in writing, in producing the what we call purely feministic texts, because the very language that they use is male centric. It's male centric. They are they are now they have started doing it. They have started inventing their own language, because when you want to, how can you attack an enemy using uh, their own weapons? You will have to use um, different weapons altogether. So this language, which is the medium of expression, is itself male centric, and this is a big challenge for any feminist, whether male or female, when he or she tries to produce a feministic text. And it is also patriarchal in nature. The words we use, and the proverbs and the statements, quotations, everything is male centric and patriarchal in nature. And language justifies the male authoritativeness. Even women, so-called feminists, also give the examples that men give, undermining the significance of women and belittling their power, etc., etc. I give just one example. Look at what bridegroom tells his mother: "Be quiet. Let us quit this talk." When bridegroom and his mother, they are talking, when they talk about the marriage, the mother does not want her only son to marry a woman who belongs to the family which is responsible for the murder of her husband and her older son. But her son, the bridegroom, is interested in the lady because she is beautiful and she is very fresh, young, beautiful, energetic. Okay, and she wants to marry her, and she is discouraging her son. Then he says, "Be quiet. Huh? Let us quit this talk. Let's not talk." And also look at the language used between Leonardo and his wife. They discuss, and this is what we find in every household and in all places. The dialogue between wife and husband. Wife asks, "Don't leave me like this, not knowing anything." He wants to go away, and wife is asking, "So we both have come to the marriage hall, and why are you going away? Don't leave me like this, not knowing anything." Leonardo, "Stop that. Stop that," he warns her. "No, you cannot ask me where I am going." Wife, "No, I want you to look at me and tell me. Look at me and tell me." And he is not ready to look at her. Because, if you want to, he doesn't have the courage to look into her eyes and speak. "No, I want you to look at me and tell me." "Leonardo, let me alone." He's trying to escape. He doesn't give a responsible answers to his wife. "I want to be alone. You please, you go or I go." So he rises to go. Then wife, "Where are you going, my love?" She uses very dear terms. "Where are you going, love?" Leonardo sharply, "Can't you shut up?" No, in a public hall, in a marriage hall, he's saying this to his wife. "Can't you shut up? Why are you asking me? Why you ask me where I'm going? I will go where I want to go." And father also reprimands bride when she meets the mother formally. Father is asking her daughter, "You shouldn't be so solemn. After all, she is going to be your mother." So this is the second challenge, big challenge for the feminists. to invent their own language, female language. There is nothing like male language, female language. Uh, I don't personally agree with this, but this is what they say, and all right if they can invent. And socio-cultural level in Spanish society, men oppress women. I don't know what the situation is today. From 1880 to 1940, I know there was absolutely no scope for women to have their own opinion, and it all started after 1930s, 1930s. But Lorca was one of the modern playwrights, modern writers, modern Spanish writers who recognized the importance and the significance of women and treated them well, both in his personal life and in his literature. So they allowed very little or no value in any matter, and even women has to have women doesn't have space at all in the house that she is living, because all the rooms in the house belong to others. They belong to husband, wife, father-in-law, mother-in-law, so on and so forth. But no room is hers. So, mother and bridegroom, the conversation between mother and bridegroom, I will draw your attention to this. Mother asks, I know the girl is good. I know the girl is good, but even so, when I say her name, I feel as, I feel as someone had hit me on the forehead with a rock. From the beginning, the mother is not interested in the girl that her son is going to marry for various reasons. I'm talking about socio-cultural context in which women are discriminated. So, woman has no say in any social context, in any cultural context. And she has to marry the person selected by the males in the family. And as mother, she cannot direct her son to marry the lady of her choice. So she has no say in any affairs of the family. Even children also suppress, not husbands, not just husbands. Even her sons also, they suppress her mother. And she says, this girl is good. There are 3 dots. The girl is good. I know the girl is good, but there are several problems. Number 1, I don't want. How can a mother, when she knows pretty well that the girl is in love with or was in love with somebody, and allow her son to marry? When you are in love with somebody, you cannot just close it. Because you get married, you cannot just close the chapter. You may not meet him or her, but you will have some kind of feeling. You hide it or you cover it up, you do something. So human life is very, very strange. Human emotions and feelings are extremely strange. It's difficult for any psychologist. It's difficult for any scholar to judge and say very authentically about human feelings, tendencies, and emotions, because they are in constant flux. They keep changing from minute to minute. And she says, when I feel, when I say her name, I feel as if someone has hit me on the forehead with a rock. Bridegroom, her own son, he says, it's foolishness. Why do you speak like that? Let bygone be bygone. It's all gone. Okay. If I don't marry her, will your dead husband come back alive? If I say no to her, will your older son, my brother, come back? Will he be alive? No, not at all. Then why worry? Why worry about? Why lament for the men who are already dead and buried? Let us enjoy the life. I like the girl, and I'll marry her. So there are again and about the confinement of woman, which is very pathetic, very pathetic, because today women are not confined to their own houses. Even daughters go out, sisters go out, wives also go out. They have their own circle, their own friendship group, etc., and they're fine. All right, but not in every household. Not in every household. Having said this, I agree. I say that yes, women are still confined. They are jailed. And who is the jailer? It could be her father, her husband, her son, and it could also be her daughter or daughter-in-law. Then I give you an interesting example. Servants in the household, they say, do you know what is to be married child? What is marriage? Blood wedding talks about marriage, the futility of marriage, the significance of marriage. What does marriage mean? What does wedding mean? What does happen in marriage? You know what it is to be a married child? Answer is, what is marriage? Marriage is a man, some children, and a wall of 2 yards thick for everything else. This is what marriage is. So in a marriage, in wedding, man becomes important again. Man becomes important and woman does not become important. And in matters of sex, again man becomes dominating and woman becomes woman is always at the receiving end. She cannot initiate. If a woman initiates, man misunderstands. So she keeps quiet. Women are not free to express their feelings and declare their love even in bed. And this is something about which men have to think about. Men have to change. So, marriage means a man, not a woman. A man, some children, and a wall of 2 yards thick, not even 3, for everything else. And what freedom do they have? What freedom do women have? Even today, we we came across this Maryada Hatte, honor killing. Okay, honor killing. I don't know. I need not explain what honor killing means and how such killings have happened in India. So the bride in the play, or any woman in society, including Indian society, she has 2 options. One, she has to choose mother's life. She has to choose the life of a mother. She has to become a mother. Marry, become a mother, and live a stagnant life. Okay? From till your death, you will have to take care of your children, grandchildren, great grandchildren, and one day you die. This is one option. And second option, you can follow your passion. Follow your passion. And blood wedding is all about instincts, all about your passion, going after your passion or following your passion. If you are in love with somebody, then forget other implications, forget other possibilities. You go to him. And what happens when you go with him? Follow your passion and die with her lover. If you marry, then there is honor killing. You are killed. Your husband is killed. Okay. Then the bride's father responds to the eloping. When they elope, bride's father says, "It couldn't be my daughter." People come and say, "Oh my God, what happened? Your daughter eloped with with Leonardo. Then he says, no, it couldn't be my daughter. Perhaps she has thrown herself in the well. Yeah. If my daughter were to run away with a man like Leonardo, she would not do it. She will rather, you know, throw herself into a well and die. She would commit suicide, and she would not do this. So we want our women to commit suicide than to follow their passion and marry the persons of their choice. Okay, and parents say this: if you don't want to marry the person we have chosen for you, you better die. I'm happy. We are happy if you die, if you commit suicide, but do not marry anybody against our wish. Then mother says, um, decent women. Who decent women are? Decent women are those who get married, those who produce children, those who confine themselves to their, their house, and who tolerate everything and die. Decent women throw themselves in water, not that one. Not that one. They decent women don't elope, but they commit suicide. And father also the same play. I want them to have a. They talk about again whether why men and women, sons and daughters. They would like to have sons, more sons than daughters. I want them to have a lot of them. Father says, when they get married, I want my son and my daughter-in-law to have children, produce children. And this land needs hands that are not hired. Lots of sons are needed, as if women don't work at all. I think Lorca should have seen Mother India, Nargis Dutt's play. A woman can also work at the field. Then he again says, if I had sons, I would have bought all the mountainside. The father, who's has a lot of love for land, and he says, I don't have many sons. If I have many sons, I would purchase a lot of land around I would have bought all this mountainside. And mother also advises her son, she will feel you are the man, the boss, the one who gives orders. Mother is advising her bridegroom, her son, when you get married, remember that your wife should feel that you are the man, and what you should do to your wife so that she will feel that you are the man, I will not explain. She will feel you are the man, the boss, the one who gives orders. And father also says, no need to tell you about my daughter. And he talks about his daughter, the bride's daughter. Every father takes in pride saying that my daughter is so good, so decent, so hardworking, and when we all sleep, she continues to work, and when we're all sleeping, she continues to, and she wakes up and does her work. Father says, no need to tell you about my daughter. At 3, when the morning star shines, she prepares the bread. This is the definition of a decent girl, But sons are sleeping, daughters are to get up. Okay, and how do you describe a son who doesn't get up at 3? Huh? Is he not lazy? No, we are silent. Yes, he's a son. He's my son. Let him sleep. At 3, when the morning sun shines, she prepares the bread. She never talks. Soft as wool. She embroiders all kinds of fancy work, and she can cut a strong cord with her teeth. Father describes the physical strength of his daughter. And then what is wedding? What is wedding? A servant says, what is wedding? Is it sweets or the bouquet of flowers? What does marriage mean? Does it mean sweets, or does it only mean the flowers, bouquet of flowers, dresses, etc.? No, it is a shining bed and a woman. This is what marriage is. And all marriages are male centric. All rituals, marriage related rituals, are male centric. The way a woman is married, the way the woman is taken as wife, it's all very, very, very male centric. And it's a shining bed. Again, bed. It's whose bed? It's not wife's bed. It's husband's bed. And who is in bed? Woman. Then lucky you are going to put your arms around a man. When you get married, the servant is talking to the bride. You are very lucky, madam. When you get married, what you will do? You will put your arms around a man and kiss him and feel his weight. You take him on you and feel his weight. He, is his weight. So this is what marriage is. I have now come to the last part of my presentation. I take another 2 to 3 minutes to conclude my presentation. Psychological level. And society shapes a woman's understanding of herself. A woman does not have a clear understanding of herself. Okay, and this is something which every woman need to understand. So society shapes a woman's understanding for herself. Unless you understand yourself, unless you understand your own self, you cannot understand. How can you understand what the requirement and needs of yourself are? You please understand the nature of it, the structure of it, so that you can take care of it. Her society, and again society, shapes her understanding of society and her own mind and her own emotions. Okay, and this is very, very, very interesting, and this is something which we all of us have to think about it and do something about it, because woman is conditioned. A woman is psychologically conditioned to behave in a certain fashion, in a certain manner, speak in a certain fashion, in a certain manner, react in a certain fashion and in a manner. So we all say, no, when man speaks, woman should not speak. When 4 men sit and discuss, women cannot enter. When husband is speaking, daughter has to keep quiet. When father is speaking, when brother is speaking, sister has to keep quiet. Okay, and males have to control females, right? And her mind, the ideas in her mind, her mind, the ideas in her mind, the thoughts in her mind, the feelings in her emotions are not hers. They are shaped by the society. They are shaped by the male-dominated society. And they say they are compared to men and women. And in this play, the daughter asks a question: haven't I done a man's work? I wish I were a man. Why should a woman want to become a man? I have come across women saying that at least in my next life I would like to take my birth as male than female. You know, so why do they wish to become male? So women are psychologically controlled. They are biologically, psychologically, socially, culturally, and linguistically controlled, exploited, manipulated by the male centric society. So these are my views on bloodletting by Lorca. Lorca was and is an interesting playwright, a very one of the finest modern playwrights, and we need to read all his plays with great interest. So, with these remarks of mine, I call it a day. Thank you. I thank the Vinay Bharati Dharwad for giving me an opportunity to talk to you on a play which I hold very close to my heart. I like it immensely, and I request all of you to not to fear this pandemic and take care, wear mask. I'm in a I'm in my room and I have taken a lot of care. I'm not wearing mask, but because there are no people around. Otherwise, I would be wearing my mask. Maintain and follow very strictly, very religiously the COVID protocols. Thank you so much. Take care of yourselves. Namaskar.